The harvest moon's shadow, the abandoned farmhouse, stood sentinel against the October sky, its weathered clapboard siding the color of old bones beneath the dying light. Sarah Chen had driven 3 hours from Boston to photograph the property for the Historical Society. But now, standing in the overgrown driveway with her camera bag slung across her shoulder, she wondered if the commission was worth the growing unease that crawled up her spine like frost on glass. Maple trees flanked the gravel path, their branches heavy with leaves that had turned the deep crimson of dried blood. Each gust of wind sent them spiraling downward in lazy pirouettes, carpeting the ground with a rustling tapestry that seemed to whisper secrets she couldn't quite decipher. The air carried the sharp bite of approaching winter, mixed with something else, something sweet and cloying that reminded her of fruit left too long to rot. The house itself leaned slightly to the left, as if the weight of decades had finally begun to tell. Paint peeled from its shutters like diseased skin, and several windows stared blindly outward, their glass either missing entirely or spider-webbed with cracks that caught the fading sunlight and threw it back in fractured rainbows. A wraparound porch sagged under the burden of collapsed sections of roof, and dead vines clung to the support posts with the tenacity of skeletal fingers. Sarah raised her camera and began documenting the exterior. The mechanical click of the shutter, the only sound besides the constant susurrus of falling leaves. Through her viewfinder, she noticed details that her naked eye had missed. Symbols carved into the doorframe that looked neither decorative nor accidental, and what appeared to be dark stains on the porch boards that had resisted years of rain and snow. As she circled the house, the shadows grew longer and more aggressive, reaching across the yard like grasping hands. The temperature seemed to drop with each step, and she pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. Behind the house, an old barn tilted at an impossible angle, its red paint faded to the color of rust and dried earth. The doors hung open, revealing nothing but impenetrable darkness within. The cornfield beyond the barn stretched toward the horizon, row upon row of withered stalks that stood like an army of scarecrows in the gathering dusk. The corn had been left unharvested, and the ears hung heavy and black with rot, their husks split open to reveal kernels that gleamed like obsidian teeth. The wind moved through the field with a sound like whispered prayers or distant screaming. Sarah found herself drawn toward the field despite every instinct telling her to return to her car. Her feet crunched through the carpet of leaves, each step releasing that sickly sweet smell that now seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. The cornstalks towered above her head, creating a maze of shadows and rustling movement that seemed to follow her progress with malevolent interest. Deep within the field, she discovered a clearing where the corn had been arranged in a perfect circle. At its center stood a scarecrow unlike any she had ever seen. Its clothes were not the typical farmer's overalls and flannel shirt, but what appeared to be a woman's dress from another irrefaded blue, calico that might once have been cheerful, but now hung in tatters from the wooden frame. The head was a burlap sack, but instead of the usual painted-on features, real hair had been sewn to the scalp-long, dark strands that moved in the wind, with an unsettling, lifelike quality. As Sarah raised her camera to capture this grotesque tableau, she noticed that the Scarecrow's position had changed. She was certain it had been facing away from her when she entered the clearing, but now it seemed to be looking directly at her, though she could see no eyes through the rough weave of the burlap. The wind died suddenly, leaving the field in absolute silence. Even the constant whisper of falling leaves had ceased, as if the entire world was holding its breath. In that moment of perfect stillness, Sarah heard something that made her blood turn to ice water in her veins. The soft, rhythmic creaking of rope under weight, as if the Scarecrow was gently swaying despite the absence of any breeze. She lowered her camera with trembling hands and saw that the Scarecrow's head had tilted to one side. The gesture almost inquisitive, almost human. The real hair that crowned its burlap skull caught the last rays of sunlight, and Sarah realized with growing horror that she recognized the color and texture. It was exactly like her own. The harvest moon rose full and orange above the cornfield, casting everything in an amber glow that made the shadows dance and writhe like living things. Sarah ran,